Bonjour and welcome back to VOX TERRA. Today I'm primarily citing from a Living on Earth article titled Heat Pumps for Peace, which was an interview with longtime climate activist Bill McKibben. Bill called on the White House to invoke what's called the Defense Production Act in order to utilize America's spare manufacturing capacity to speed the clean energy transition, specifically calling for the manufacture of insulation material and heat pumps, then shipping them to Europe to help break dependence on Russian fossil fuels, natural gas and oil, as well as address the climate crisis. Now, according to Common Dreams, this plan is gaining traction in the White House. The Defense Production Act, according to Britannica, was enacted September 8th of 1950 in response to the Korean conflict, and it grants the President of the U.S. temporary powers to ensure or expedite production to promote the country's, quote, national defense. Now, as Bill McKibben pointed out, it's been used 50 times since Korea by every president, and in areas not directly related to war. Most famously recently, Biden and Trump using it to speed production of vaccines, and less well known, Joe Biden used it in response to last summer's record wildfires out west to bring on the production of more fire hose. Well, insulation material is probably common sense to most of us. You're trying to prevent heat or cool loss from a building, therefore reduce your energy consumption. Heat pump technology is less well known. There's two main types, air source and ground source. Now, according to the Department of Energy, heat pumps basically operate by transferring ambient heat from the air, water, or ground into the home or building, and they can be run in reverse to cool a building. Now, heat pumps are potentially much more efficient than furnaces and air conditioners because they are simply transferring heat rather than converting it from a fuel. Now, ground source heat pumps are a little easier for me to wrap my head around. Basically, I heard a heat pump advocate by the name of Jay Egg analogize them to like sticking a straw into the earth and pulling out that stable earth temperature and pumping it into the building. Think about it when you go into a cave or a basement, it's generally a fairly stable temperature. According to the DOE, Department of Energy, ground source heat pumps are reliable and sturdy and work well even in very cold climates. Air source heat pumps, the one I heard Bill McKibben talk about more in this interview, can, if installed properly, deliver 3 times more heat energy than the amount of electricity they consume. Now, also according to the DOE website, up until recent years, air source heat pumps have been more limited in their use and that they're not efficient in extremely cold climates. But thanks to technology innovations, this too is changing. Now, by switching to heat pumps and using insulation, yes, you are reducing energy consumption, but you're also engaging in something called electrification, because since these heat pumps are electrical rather than operating on burning natural gas, you have the potential to power them from renewable energy sources. And it is my understanding that in general the grid is trending towards a more renewable direction, despite a lot of pushback to prevent that from happening. Now, if you're like me and you're thinking, well, what about the extra pollution in shipping all these heat pumps and insulation material? Here we need to look at what's called the entire life cycle of a product, meaning the whole carbon life cycle from start to finish. And second, don't let the defenders of fossil fuels throw you off track by ignoring the shipping requirements, the extraction requirements of burning fossil fuels. Remember, to run a fossil fuel driven engine or furnace or power source, you are on a daily basis extracting, burning, shipping these products. Well, if these here heat pumps are truly more efficient, then shouldn't our free market system be rewarding them by those products being the choice already? Shouldn't they be cheaper? And shouldn't it be obvious to everyone already that they are cheaper? Well, something not factored in general is something called market externalities. That means that the true cost of a product, the true health consequences, the environmental impact is shipped off onto the public. So that natural gas doesn't have to pay for in the price of gas the cost of those fracking chemicals that enter the water and the methane releases that enter the atmosphere. The more you look at the political economic situation, the more I think you'll come to agree with me, there isn't really much of a free market, and there really hasn't been. So the question now comes to me, and maybe it comes to you, if we've had this Defense Production Act for 50 years now, and it's been used all along to spur on production of things that are not directly related to an immediate conflict or war, then why wasn't it already used to transition towards a renewable economy? Why wasn't it used on a massive scale during the OPEC oil crisis of the 1970s? And why isn't it already being used today on a massive scale? Here's where I want to pause and just caution about Bill McKibben's approach of framing this issue as much or even more about stopping Putin as he is framing it about addressing climate change in our environment. It is my experience, based on a lifetime of observations, that tactic generally leaves the public remembering the threat from the foreign adversary, but forgetting the threat from our own industries at home. And we see that happening now with this conflict and the calls for expanded oil and gas drilling. Yes, during the 1970s, Carter did emphasize the threat from abroad, from the Middle East, and use that to then put solar panels on the White House and encourage some renewable energy development, as well as energy conservation. But by overlooking the might and power of the fossil fuel industry within our own country, as well as that of the defense manufacturers, that paved the way, in my opinion, for Ronald Reagan to come in, who then reversed those gains, ushering in an era of ever larger vehicles and more oil and gas consumption. I mean, think about how our media has operated over your lifetime. How many times have you heard report after report about foreign adversary, foreign enemy, over and over and over until the public is whipped up to action and everyone's galvanized? But could you ever imagine the media doing the same thing with the fossil fuel petrochemical industry, highlighting report after report of people getting poisoned, toxic spills, toxic leaks, or even nefarious activities abroad? The Defense Production Act could have been invoked years ago to break America's dependence on fossil fuels, equipping our homes with ground source geothermal heat pumps, rooftop solar panels, regional wind and energy storage solutions. But how would the fossil fuel industry react to having their income source cut off in our very country? How would they react? It is one of the wealthiest, most powerful industries on the planet. It has been around since almost the dawn of modern capitalism. Its influence and power in our government is phenomenal, and I've shown you that influence and power is even more extreme among the Republican Party. I believe that if more people realize the reason why we are not already at that renewable energy economy, why we are still pumping our earth full of toxins, carcinogens, and greenhouse gases, why we are trapped in a system of mindless consumerism, is all to protect business as usual. If more people could see that, then I believe we could make this transition. And the only way you can fix a problem is to see the problem. Well, I hope you found this video really helpful, interesting, and informative. And if you did, please make sure you're subscribed to my channel. You've clicked that notification bell. You're liking, you're commenting, you're donating at Patreon. And until next time, as always, peace be with you.